So, as a fearful avoidant attachment style, one of the big fears is betrayal. And this betrayal can take many different shapes and forms. There can be a fear of being lied to, a fear of having the wool pulled over your eyes, thinking somebody's one way only to find out they're another. But betrayal obviously can also include things like being cheated on, which can be a big fear for anxious, preoccupied, and fearful avoidants alike. And so, in this video, I wanted to cover specifically more so for the FA, but definitely for the AP too, how to avoid being cheated on. Now, if you're like, what are you talking about? And you don't know what the fearful avoidant is and the anxious preoccupied is, those are two of four main attachment styles. Every single person has an attachment style, literally everybody. And there's a securely attached person. They tend to have the greatest chance of success at relationships. And then there's insecurely attached styles, which are the anxious or kind of clingy, needy one, but they tend to be quite friendly and likable and charming. The dismissive avoidant, who tends to be the really big commitment fearing, sometimes walled off, slow moving in relationships personality type. And then we have the fearful avoidant attachment style, which kind of has elements of both the anxious and dismissive. They are kind of the hot and cold partner. So they'll be like, come close, get away, get away. And it kind of just repeats. And they sometimes have quite roller coaster and volatile kind of relationships from time to time. Well, really in general, they tend to have quite roller coastery relationships, but that comes from that constant swinging of the pendulum from their anxious wanting closeness side to their really avoidant side. It kind of mirrors the ups and downs of a roller coaster. So anyways, we cover a lot of different stuff about these different styles, love styles on this channel if you want to check out further. But basically, we can see these different mechanics for why people cheat and how to avoid being cheated on. So obviously people should not cheat in relationships. If you're making a commitment, why would you make a commitment to something and sabotage it at the same time? It doesn't make any sense. However, it's something that's quite common in relationships, and there tend to be very specific reasons as to why this takes place. And I wanted to go through some of these, not because I'm here saying if somebody has been cheated on, it's their fault or there's something they should have done differently. Absolutely not. It's definitely the onus of responsibility being on the cheater or the person who violated that agreement that's made being in a relationship. However, by understanding it more deeply, because I've worked with so many couples over the last decade, I would see people have these kind of insights and aha moments that, number one, actually gave them some closure if they had been cheated on. It made things kind of make a little more sense. And number two, it also highlights the important patterns we have to have in our relationships to avoid the potential of infidelity should it happen. So first and foremost, and I'll actually share a little slide here with you guys, just so you can see it visually. So first and foremost, the most common reasons that people cheat in relationships really cover three core things. Number one is unmet needs. Number two is then a lack of communication about those needs. And then it triggers a justification across time. Now, I'm really going to unpack what that means. So when we have a relationship, especially a long-standing relationship, if we don't have good emotional literacy, we may not be having communication about our needs. And something that's so interesting is that the subconscious mind is just this needs meeting machine. It's literally designed to just hyper try to get your needs met. And so what happens is if you're in a romantic relationship and over time, many things can happen. You can have new children, have a new career change, a loss in the family, a new job, all these things can happen. And sometimes it can take our presence and focus out of the relationship like it once was, perhaps in like the honeymoon stage of the relationship. And so over time, what can happen is partners start to kind of grow apart if they're not naturally communicating about what they're needing as time goes on. So I'll just give a simple example. Maybe you have a really busy life with, your home life and your partner and your children, but maybe you feel lonely and you feel unseen because you're not getting enough quality time with your partner and you're not really having deeper conversations and being present with each other in the same way. Well, if you see that happening and you don't know how to discuss it, you're kind of caught stuck in your pain. Like that pain just goes somewhere, usually inside of yourself, and you internalize it. And for a little bit of time, we can usually withstand that. But over time, it really tends to breed resentment. It tends to really build into a lot of resentment between two parties. Now, if this is happening from both parties' side, then it can cause a lot of frustration. And so if both people start resenting each other, then they start bickering, then they start kind of digging at each other sometimes. But really, at the crux of everything is still that you aren't getting your needs met from somebody who once really met your needs enough for you to invest in a relationship with them. And just that can feel like a sense of betrayal or can feel like a sense of loss. And so when we're with somebody and we're not able to bridge that gap and talk about our needs and talk about how, hey, things have changed, let's try to work on these things together in the relationship. Usually we just form all this resentment that just builds and builds and builds, and it causes people to start to justify. Now, the subconscious mind is designed this way. It's trying to get its needs met all the time. So what often happens to people is that in specific scenarios, when their needs are unmet for a long time and then they're not communicating about them, then they start justifying their behaviors, resentful behaviors, angry behaviors towards their partner, behaviors of betrayal. And this is where these things tend to come on. And again, this is not me saying if you were cheated on that it's anything with your fault, right? That the person not communicating their needs, the onus of responsibility is on them to be the one sharing their needs. But if they're not, these are the steps that tend to be followed for people. Again, not all people. Some people are really good at meeting their own needs, and some people are really good at communicating their needs. And some people, just have such a strong moral compass around not cheating that a lot of these times it won't happen. But in the times that they have, it always follows this pattern with one exception. And I'll just say it quick on a side note. The one exception being if somebody struggles with chronic infidelity, sex addiction issues, things like that, that usually relate to, a deep, deep unmet need around significance and feeling wanted and important, and valued. And sometimes it can manifest into coping mechanisms around sex and, a lot of those different things. There's usually a whole bunch of unresolved trauma that's there beneath the surface as well. But I'm going to put that in like the category of 10% or less of the entire amount of people who cheat in relationships and why it happens. So like 10% of the time, it's that discussion. We can maybe make a separate video about that if somebody struggles with sex addiction or chronic infidelity. But then the other 90%, it almost always follows this map, this trajectory. And so when we start telling stories over time, we go, oh, my partner doesn't care about me, so it doesn't matter if I betray them. My partner doesn't even see me, so they don't care about what I'm doing in the relationship. And people start telling these really insidious stories. And part of it is from that resentment, and part of it is actually the mind trying to justify its way to break out of one situation to get its needs met in another. And then if somebody comes along who represents in your life the needs that your partner's not meeting, we tend to get into limerence with those people. So if you feel really unseen and like your partner's not present with you, and then somebody comes into your life and they see you and they really are present with you and they notice little things about you, that would like light you up, right? Because it's lighting up the needs that are chronically being unmet and that you're kind of starving for. And so these are the places, if we don't have like such strong boundaries around this kind of thing, these are the traps that people tend to fall into. And so there's this really important dynamic about like not just how to address that, but also how to avoid it. And so again, I'm putting a short video here. If you want to do a much deeper dive into this topic, for all of the rest of February, we were doing a 14-day free trial, and I actually have a course that's all about this. And it really digs into how to repair broken relationships around trust. It also talks about how to repair self-trust in relationships. If you struggle to trust yourself, your gut instincts, if you struggle to trust like your own boundaries and that you can do things, like it covers all elements of trust, and you can check it out for free for 14 days. We actually, for every single one of our courses, guarantee a breakthrough in the first 7 days. As long as you actually take the course, of course, but we have a full money back guarantee, whether you take it or not. But if you really dig in there, the course is only about an hour and a half long, and it will change. Like each one of our courses are designed to give you a major breakthrough in the area that they're focused on. So if you really want to have a massive breakthrough in your life and relationships in a really short period of time, dig into the course, the Repairing Broken Trust course. I'll just put a link for that down below. So anyways, if we go back to this for a second, let's say, for example, you're a fearful avoidant, and let's say you feel shut out, or let's say your partner, feels shut out and pushed away for long periods of time. Maybe you're stonewalling them, things like that. If they're not communicating how that's affecting them, then there's a potential of following that path. Of course, it depends so much on the relationship and the type of person and all these different things. And it's not me saying, oh, it's you. You're probably stonewalling for a reason because you don't feel like your needs are met. You don't feel seen and heard and known and understood. And so, how to avoid being cheated on or having betrayals in relationships, either way, really, like even if you were the person to go in the direction of cheating. And, if we're just having an honest conversation, right? Because these things happen in relationships from time to time and they come from pain, right? They come from us feeling lonely or sad or disconnected or all these different things. But how you actually fix this is to communicate your needs, to get really good at sharing, opening up, saying what's not being met in the relationship, coming up with a good strategy for that thing to be met, whether it's quality time or your partner's presence or trying new things together or whatever it might be. And to also encourage your partner to communicate. And if that part is strong, you're going to be able to weather the storms of relationships. During challenging times, we'll be able to do a needs check in and say, hey, we've been really busy with our new kids. That's been a tough time. Let's go back to doing a date night again. Let's just make it a non negotiable because we're feeling disconnected. You'll be able to have those dialogues together. And that's ultimately what makes this massive difference in our relationships. So, really important thing to pay attention to. Definitely an amazing immunity to avoid potential challenges in situations like this. And if you're somebody who has ever been cheated on and you need to reconcile that and you need closure, the Repairing Broken Trust course will help you repair your internal trust baseline that might have been fractured from past experiences. It will also help you rebuild trust within yourself, and it will help you learn how to resolve different situations where trust has been broken if that's something you want to choose to do. So again, it's free for 14 days, very limited time. We're not going to do this 14-day trial forever. And I hope you learned something from this. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any future questions about this topic, let me know in the comments below. Thank you for being here. If you're enjoying this channel, please consider subscribing. I put literally daily videos out about a whole bunch of different topics. But as always, the deepest dive into topics will be through those courses that we offer for free trials. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in future videos.